Queen Amina of Zaria. The very mention of her name stirs up images of power, warfare, and an unyielding will to rule. But beyond the stories of battles and conquests lies a legacy that has often been overshadowed by the passing of time. Her name, like the empires she built, has faded into the shadows of history. Yet, the life of Amina is a story that demands to be remembered, not only for her incredible achievements, but for the way she challenged the expectations of her time, carving out her own place in history as one of Africa's greatest rulers. Let's go back to the 16th century, a time when the African continent was filled with thriving kingdoms, complex societies, and dynamic leaders. Amina was born into the Hausa Kingdom of Zaria, located in what is now northern Nigeria. Zaria was one of the largest and most powerful of the Hausa city-states, known for its strategic position and its formidable warriors. It was within this backdrop of military might and political intrigue that Amina's journey would begin. Her father, King Nikitau, was a respected ruler who understood the importance of strong leadership. It is said that Amina inherited her father's military mind, a characteristic that would prove essential to her reign. Her early life remains somewhat shrouded in mystery. What we do know, however, is that from a young age, Amina was groomed not just to be a queen, but to be a leader. While most royal daughters of the time were relegated to domestic roles, Amina was different. She showed a fierce interest in the military matters of her kingdom, often sitting in on council meetings and learning the intricacies of battle. In fact, it's said that she was raised not only in the palace, but in the field, watching her father's campaigns and taking note of the strategies that would later define her rule. When her father passed away, the throne was left to her brother, Karama, but it soon became clear that the kingdom would not thrive under his leadership. Karama, while well-meaning, lacked the military acumen needed to fend off the growing threats from neighboring kingdoms. Zaria was vulnerable, and its enemies were circling like vultures. Amina saw the growing danger, and she knew what had to be done. She took matters into her own hands, and in an unprecedented move, seized the throne. In a kingdom where women were typically not seen as rulers, this bold move was met with surprise, skepticism, and resistance. But Amina was unwavering. She was ready to prove herself, not just as a ruler, but as a warrior in her own right. Amina's reign began in turmoil, but her decisiveness quickly became her trademark. She realized that to keep Zaria strong, she needed to expand its territory, strengthen its defenses, and protect her people from the numerous threats around her. She launched a series of campaigns, targeting the neighboring city-states that had long been Zaria's rivals. Under her leadership, the Zarian army began to move with purpose, capturing key territories and fortifying her kingdom's borders. Her military tactics were brilliant, strategic, swift, and effective. Amina's forces were known for their discipline, and under her command, they became a force to be reckoned with. Her first major victory came against the Kingdom of Kano, a neighboring state that had long been a thorn in Zaria's side. The conquest of Kano was not just a military victory. It was a statement. Amina had shown that her rule would not be taken lightly. She took charge of her army personally, leading from the front, and it wasn't long before other kingdoms began to take notice of the fierce warrior queen who had risen to power. Kano fell, and Amina's reputation grew, with each new victory adding to the legend of Queen Amina. But Amina was not content with mere conquest. She understood that for Zaria to remain powerful, it needed to be both militarily and economically strong. She turned her attention to trade, seeking out new routes and forging alliances with other kingdoms. Under her rule, Zaria became a thriving center of commerce, attracting merchants from across the region. Salt, gold, and ivory flowed through the city's markets, and her empire's wealth grew. Her diplomatic skill matched her military prowess, and Zaria prospered under her reign. Amina's vision extended beyond the battlefield and into the heart of Zaria itself. She strengthened the city's defenses, commissioning the construction of a series of protective walls around her city. These fortifications, still visible today, are a testament to her strategic thinking. Zaria was a fortified stronghold, able to withstand the pressures of war and protect its people from harm. The walls of Zaria became as much a symbol of Amina's rule as her military victories, strong, unyielding, and built to last. However, Amina's empire was not without its internal challenges. While her military successes earned her the respect of her people, there were those who resisted her rule. Many traditionalists in the kingdom doubted her ability to lead, particularly because she was a woman. In a patriarchal society, the idea of a woman ruling was seen as unnatural, even wrong. Amina, however, silenced her critics with her actions. She proved time and again that leadership wasn't about gender. It was about the ability to command, to inspire, and to act decisively in the face of adversity. Her strength was undeniable, and those who had once doubted her came to see her as the fierce and capable ruler that she was. With her military expansion and the growth of her kingdom's wealth, Amina became a powerful figure in the region. Her influence stretched beyond Zaria, reaching into the distant corners of West Africa. Traders from across the continent came to Zaria to conduct business, and even the distant empires of Europe and the Ottoman Empire took notice of the warrior queen. Her legacy as a ruler, strategist, and cultural icon spread far and wide, transcending the borders of her kingdom and inspiring generations of leaders to come. But despite her many accomplishments, Amina's reign was not without sacrifice. Her military campaigns took a toll on her, both physically and emotionally. As she aged, the weight of leadership began to wear on her. Her empire, which she had worked so hard to build, would soon face its greatest test yet. Amina's death remains a subject of mystery and debate. Some say she died in battle, her body finally succumbing to the injuries sustained during her final campaign. Others believe she passed away peacefully in her palace, after ensuring that her kingdom was stable and her successors were ready to carry on her legacy. Whatever the cause of her death, one thing is certain: Amina's legacy lived on. Her empire, built on the foundations of strength, strategy, and cultural pride, continued to thrive long after her passing. Queen Amina's name would echo through the halls of history, a reminder that greatness knows no gender, and that the true measure of a leader lies not in their title, but in their actions. The story of Amina, the warrior queen of Zaria, is more than just a tale of battles won and kingdoms expanded. It is a testament to the power of vision, the resilience of the human spirit, and the undeniable fact that true leaders are those who shape the world around them with wisdom, courage, and determination. As we look back on her reign, we can only wonder, what might the world look like today if more people followed in the footsteps of Queen Amina? As time went on, Amina's empire stretched further and further. Her territory was not only marked by its military conquests, but by the way she unified the diverse regions she had conquered. Zaria had long been a cultural melting pot, with different ethnic groups, languages, and traditions coming together. Amina embraced this diversity, allowing different cultures to thrive under her rule. This was key to her success, for she understood that strength came not from homogeneity, but from unity amidst diversity. One of the most notable achievements of Amina's reign was her commitment to building infrastructure. As her empire expanded, so did her need to ensure that the lands she had conquered remained connected. Zaria, under Amina's leadership, became a hub of trade and communication. Roads were built to facilitate movement across the empire, and the communication networks were enhanced, ensuring that news of military strategies, royal decrees, and trade could move swiftly across her vast domains. Her investment in infrastructure wasn't just for the benefit of her kingdom's military or economic power. It was also about the welfare of her people. By improving the roads, Amina made it easier for goods to be transported, for farmers to bring their harvests to market, and for merchants to trade their wares. In this way, her empire was not only about conquest and strength, it was also about ensuring that those who lived within its borders could prosper. Amina was not a ruler who sought glory for herself alone. She understood that her legacy would be measured by how her people lived, not just by how many territories she could conquer. Even as Amina's reign reached its zenith, the challenges continued to mount. With a vast empire came even greater threats. The neighboring kingdoms, particularly those to the west, saw Amina's growing power as a direct threat. Some of them had been the victims of her earlier conquests, and they were determined to take back what they had lost. However, Amina was ready. She had a well-trained and well-equipped army at her disposal, and she wasn't afraid to use it. She understood the delicate balance of power and kept her military always prepared for the unexpected. Her enemies quickly realized that they could not defeat her in battle, and so they turned to subterfuge, attempting to destabilize her rule through political maneuvers and internal rebellion. Amina, however, was not only a master on the battlefield, but also in the court. She understood that to hold power, one must also understand the intricacies of diplomacy. She skillfully navigated the political landscape, ensuring that her allies remained loyal, her enemies remained at bay, and her subjects never questioned her authority. She ruled with an iron hand, yes, but she also ruled with wisdom. Amina knew when to show mercy, when to negotiate, and when to crush dissent. And in this, she showed herself not just as a great warrior queen, but as a tactician whose wisdom surpassed the limitations of mere battle. Her diplomacy was often tested, as rival kingdoms continuously attempted to invade or undermine her power. However, Amina's reputation alone was enough to deter many from outright conflict, even as an unspoken truce seemed to hold across her empire's borders. Amina's forces were always on standby, ready to defend her land at a moment's notice. For her enemies, the very thought of crossing the border into Zaria was enough to make them reconsider their motives. Amina's leadership was marked by her relentless focus on the future of her people. As her reign wore on, she set up institutions that would sustain her empire long after her death. She ensured that Zaria had a system of governance that could outlast any one ruler. She was strategic in her selection of heirs, ensuring that her successors were prepared for the task of ruling with wisdom and strength. She didn't just want to create an empire that was powerful in her time. She wanted an empire that would endure for centuries. Her army, which had once been a force built purely on conquest, was also transformed under Amina's reign. She recognized the need for a more organized military system, and she established regiments that were trained not only for battle, but also for the protection and welfare of Zaria's citizens. This gave her army a unique dual purpose, one that protected her land from external threats while also maintaining order within the empire itself. Under her command, Zaria's military became a model for other kingdoms to emulate. As Amina's reign continued, her military innovations took on new forms. She introduced new weaponry, armored cavalry, and advanced tactics that allowed her forces to maintain their dominance. Yet, what truly set Amina apart was her ability to inspire loyalty in those who fought for her. Her soldiers were not just fighting for land or wealth, they were fighting for Amina herself, a queen who led by example, who never asked her men to do anything she wasn't willing to do herself. This personal connection between Amina and her soldiers made her not just a queen, but a symbol of unity and strength. Her warriors would follow her anywhere. Though her reign is often remembered for her military conquests, Amina also made significant strides in the cultural and intellectual spheres of Zaria. She was a patron of the arts, a sponsor of education, and a promoter of knowledge. It is said that during her reign, the city of Zaria became a center of learning, attracting scholars from across Africa and the world. Her court was a place where artists, poets, and intellectuals gathered to exchange ideas, creating a vibrant cultural scene that enriched not only Zaria, but the entire region. Amina's love of knowledge was not just about personal gain. It was about enriching her kingdom and ensuring that Zaria could stand on the world stage as a beacon of culture, intellect, and creativity. Despite all her achievements, Amina never stopped pushing for more. She was a woman who saw no limits to what she could achieve, and her ambition never waned. As the years passed, her health began to decline, but even in her final years, Amina continued to govern with the same fierce determination that had defined her entire reign. She knew that her time was limited, but she also knew that her legacy was secure. Zaria would thrive, and her people would remember her not only as a queen, but as the embodiment of strength, resilience, and leadership. In her final days, Amina passed on the mantle of leadership to her chosen successor, a young, capable ruler who had been trained in the art of governance by Amina herself. The succession was smooth, and Zaria continued to prosper in the years that followed. While her death marked the end of an era, it did not signal the end of her influence. The legacy of Queen Amina of Zaria lived on, not just in the walls of her kingdom or the stories of her battles, but in the hearts and minds of those who remembered her as a warrior, a ruler, and a symbol of what true leadership can be. As time marched on, the legend of Queen Amina grew beyond the walls of her kingdom. In the years following her death, the stories of her military conquests, strategic brilliance, and unshakable leadership became the stuff of legend. It wasn't just her military prowess that captured the imagination of those who heard her story. It was the way she defied the odds. In a world where women were often relegated to the sidelines, Amina took center stage and rewrote the rules. She showed the world that leadership was about vision, strategy, and resolve, qualities that transcend gender, class, and time. In the centuries that followed her death, Amina's name would echo in the hearts of African leaders. Her story became a source of inspiration, not just for the people of Zaria, but for all those who faced oppression, who fought for justice, and who sought to change the course of history. It was said that even in the courtrooms of neighboring empires, rulers would whisper her name in awe. They recognized Amina as a queen of unparalleled strength, a woman whose rule defied the expectations of her time, and whose legacy continued to inspire the generations that came after. Amina's impact on West African history cannot be overstated. Her reign brought about a transformation, not just in her kingdom, but in the entire region. She was a visionary leader who laid the groundwork for what would become one of the most powerful and influential empires of her time. Zaria flourished under her rule, and its strength was felt throughout the continent. Traders, scholars, and warriors alike recognized the empire's strategic importance, and many sought to establish alliances with Zaria, eager to benefit from the stability and prosperity that Amina had created. But even in the shadow of her success, Amina faced challenges that tested the very foundation of her rule. As her empire expanded, so did the pressure to maintain control over the vast territories she had conquered. Rival kingdoms, aware of her influence, began to plot against her, hoping to seize some of her territories for themselves. These adversaries underestimated Amina's ability to defend her kingdom. With her armies at her side, she not only repelled each invasion, but took the fight to the very heart of her enemies' lands. Her leadership turned the tide of many battles, securing her place as one of the greatest military strategists in African history. Amina's ability to balance the demands of warfare with the needs of her people was a rare feat. While she expanded Zaria's borders, she also focused on the internal stability of her kingdom. She encouraged the development of the arts, supported educational institutions, and maintained a strong economy. Under her leadership, Zaria became a center of intellectual and cultural exchange, a place where new ideas were welcomed and innovation was celebrated. The kingdom thrived because Amina understood that a nation's strength lay not just in its army, but in its culture, its people, and its ability to adapt to changing times. Her innovations in military strategy were ahead of their time, but they weren't the only contributions Amina made to the world. She understood the importance of governance and leadership on a larger scale. She didn't just lead through her military success. She led through her vision for a united, prosperous empire. She ensured that Zaria was a place where all people, regardless of their background or ethnicity, could contribute to the growth of the kingdom. Her legacy was built not just on her battles, but on the institutions she established to ensure the survival and success of her people for generations to come. As the years went by, Amina's legend only grew. Stories of her courage and strength were passed down from one generation to the next, immortalizing her in the hearts of those who sought to follow in her footsteps. Her name became synonymous with resilience, wisdom, and power, and even centuries later, she remained a figure of immense respect and admiration. Her influence also spread beyond Africa. The rise of European exploration and colonial expansion in the centuries following Amina's reign brought her story to the attention of the outside world. Scholars, historians, and explorers began to uncover the remarkable tale of the warrior queen who had defied the norms of her time and led her people to glory. The West, often quick to overlook the accomplishments of African leaders, could not ignore Amina's impact. Her story resonated with those who believed in the power of one person to change the course of history. But perhaps the most lasting impact of Amina's rule was on the women who came after her. In a world that often silenced the voices of women in power, Amina became a symbol of what was possible when a woman refused to be bound by society's limitations. Her leadership showed women everywhere that they could be warriors, rulers, and leaders in their own right. Her reign proved that power was not confined to men, and that women had the strength to shape the world around them. In the years to come, her story would inspire countless women to rise up, take charge of their own destinies, and fight for what they believed in. In many ways, Amina's story is timeless. Her courage, determination, and vision continue to inspire people to this day. She is remembered not just as a queen, but as a revolutionary leader who fought for her kingdom and her people, and whose influence transcended her lifetime. In a world where women were often confined to the margins, Amina broke through, leaving a legacy that continues to resonate with those who seek to defy the odds and change the world. Even now, in the modern world, Amina's story serves as a powerful reminder of the potential within each of us to make a difference. Her life demonstrates that true leadership is not about titles or gender. It is about the ability to inspire, to challenge the status quo, and to leave an indelible mark on the world. She was not just a warrior. She was a queen, a visionary, and a symbol of strength and perseverance. And so, as we reflect on the life of Queen Amina, we realize that her story is not just one of the past. It is a story that continues to live on in the hearts of those who understand that greatness knows no boundaries. The tale of Amina, the warrior queen of Zaria, will endure for generations to come, a beacon of hope, courage, and the unbreakable power of the human spirit. As Amina's reign progressed, it became evident that her influence went beyond military conquests and political strategy. Her empire, built on the strength of her vision and the loyalty of her people, became a beacon of what an organized, prosperous, and culturally rich kingdom could look like. Her kingdom's growth wasn't just a result of her battles. It was the product of the relentless drive to create a sustainable future for her people. Amina had a clear understanding that true power wasn't merely in the ability to conquer, but in the ability to ensure that the empire she ruled could thrive long after the dust from the battlefield settled. Amina's reign also helped shape the cultural identity of Zaria and the surrounding kingdoms. She emphasized the importance of preserving and promoting the rich traditions and histories of her people. Art, music, and literature flourished under her rule. Zaria became a cultural center, attracting artists, musicians, and scholars from across the region. Amina understood that an empire was not just defined by its military might, but also by the contributions of its people to the world's cultural tapestry. Her court was a melting pot of ideas, with storytellers, poets, and philosophers sharing their work, pushing the boundaries of art and thought. Her support for the arts was more than just a patronage. It was a recognition that culture played a significant role in shaping society. The stories of Amina's military victories and leadership were immortalized in psalms, poetry, and dance, further solidifying her as not only a military leader, but as an icon of strength and resilience. Even today, these stories continue to be passed down through generations, ensuring that the legacy of Queen Amina is never forgotten. In addition to promoting the arts, Amina recognized the importance of education. Her empire was not only a place of military might, but a hub of knowledge and intellectual discourse. She invited scholars from far and wide to share their wisdom and ensure that the people of Zaria were not only warriors, but also learned men and women. Amina's reign marked a renaissance of sorts for her people, one that blended military discipline with intellectual and cultural growth. This commitment to education and intellectual pursuit was groundbreaking, especially at a time when many kingdoms were focused solely on military power. Queen Amina of Zaria may have lived centuries ago, but her story is timeless. She is a beacon of hope and strength for all who strive to break barriers, rise above limitations, and fight for their vision of a better world. Her life reminds us that greatness is not defined by the limitations imposed by society, but by the ability to push those boundaries and achieve what others may deem impossible. Her spirit, her story, and her legacy live on, a powerful testament to what one person, one queen, can do to change the world. Queen Amina's influence extended beyond the military and political spheres. Her reign fundamentally altered the course of history in ways that have only been fully appreciated in the centuries following her death. Her leadership style, rooted in both the practicalities of ruling and the spiritual guidance of her people, established a model for rulers that combined both power and compassion, authority and wisdom. Even as other kingdoms and empires rose and fell, Zaria, under Amina's rule, continued to be seen as a beacon of strength and unity. In the years that followed her reign, stories of her greatness would become intertwined with the very identity of Zaria itself. Her name was passed down from one generation to the next, told and retold in the songs of griots, the storytellers who kept the history of West Africa alive through oral tradition. These tales painted Amina as not just a queen, but a divine figure, a ruler who was destined to lead, a warrior who defied the expectations of her time. It was through these stories that Amina's legacy began to take on a mythic quality, as people throughout the region looked to her as the epitome of courage, strength, and resilience. Even though the direct political power of her dynasty would eventually fade, the symbolism of Amina's reign remained. Her rule represented a unique moment in history, an era when a woman led a powerful empire, challenging both local and global norms. Amina was not just a ruler of Zaria. She became a symbol for all women in Africa, showing them that they could rise to positions of power and influence. This message, delivered by her life's example, helped to shape the future roles of women in African societies, many of whom looked to her for inspiration. In the centuries that followed, the African continent saw a number of powerful female rulers, such as Ya Asantewaa of the Ashanti Empire, who would rise to prominence with their own incredible leadership. Many of these leaders would later cite Queen Amina as a guiding figure in their struggles for power and respect. For them, Amina's ability to hold her ground in a male-dominated world of politics and warfare demonstrated that women, too, had the strength to lead and command in the face of adversity. Despite the expansion of European colonial powers in the 19th and 20th centuries, and the ensuing cultural and political upheavals in Africa, Amina's legacy continued to live on. Her name was invoked in the resistance movements that fought against colonization, as African leaders drew upon her example of standing firm against external pressures. Much like Amina, they understood that to preserve the culture and dignity of their people, they had to unite, fight, and stand against foreign invaders. The European colonial powers, during their conquest of the African continent, did their best to erase or rewrite African history to fit their own narrative. Yet Queen Amina's story remained remarkably resilient. She became a symbol of Africa's strength, a beacon of resistance against foreign domination. Her name was kept alive in the traditions of the Hausa people, in the folklore of Zaria, and in the minds of those who remembered her as a warrior queen who refused to bow to anyone, not even the forces of colonization. Her legacy was also immortalized in the historical record, as scholars, both African and non-African, began to revisit the great queens and kings of African history. Amina became a central figure in this rediscovery, serving as a prime example of what African leadership could look like: bold, innovative, and transformative. She stood as a counterpoint to the colonial narrative that often portrayed African leaders as weak or incapable. Instead, Amina's story showed that Africa had long been home to powerful, sophisticated rulers whose achievements were on par with, if not greater than, those of other great civilizations. In the modern era, Queen Amina's legacy continues to inspire, especially in the context of contemporary movements for gender equality. In a world where women are still fighting for their voices to be heard and their rights to be respected, Amina stands as a powerful reminder of what is possible when women break free from societal constraints and take control of their destinies. Her story is often invoked in feminist discourse across Africa and around the world, as a symbol of what it means for women to be leaders, warriors, and agents of change. Her tale encourages women everywhere to look beyond the boundaries of gender and see themselves as capable of greatness, just as Amina did in her own time. Today, the city of Zaria, where Amina once ruled, continues to hold deep reverence for its famous queen. Statues, monuments, and schools dedicated to her legacy can be found throughout the city. Local celebrations, festivals, and events commemorate her victories and contributions to the cultural and political development of the region. In the hearts of the people of Zaria, Amina's legacy is alive and well, a part of their identity and their pride. In recent years, historians and anthropologists have worked tirelessly to preserve the history of Amina's reign, piecing together fragments of her life and leadership from oral traditions, archaeological discoveries, and ancient texts. While much of her life is still a mystery, the parts of her story that have been uncovered tell a remarkable tale of strength, vision, and leadership. It is through this ongoing effort that Amina's story is being told to a new generation. For those who have the privilege of learning about Queen Amina, whether through books, documentaries, or stories passed down through families, her life serves as a powerful reminder that one person, no matter their gender, background, or circumstances, can change the world. Amina's story is proof that leadership comes from within, and that those who dare to challenge the norms and take bold action can reshape the future for generations to come. As we reflect on Amina's legacy, we can't help but think of how the world might be different if more people embraced the qualities she embodied. What would the world look like if more leaders showed the kind of courage, vision, and determination that Queen Amina demonstrated throughout her life? What if more people fought for what they believed in, even when the odds seemed insurmountable? The legacy of Queen Amina teaches us that greatness is not about titles, but about the strength of character, the ability to inspire others, and the willingness to challenge the status quo. In closing, Queen Amina's story is one of the most remarkable in the history of the African continent. It is a story that transcends borders, that resonates with anyone who believes in the power of leadership, courage, and perseverance. Her name will continue to live on in the annals of history and her spirit will continue to inspire future generations to rise to greatness, just as she did all those centuries ago. Beyond the military victories and the vast expansion of her kingdom, Queen Amina's reign was also defined by her strategic genius. She was not just a warrior who led her people into battle. She was a master of psychological warfare, using her intelligence and foresight to outwit her enemies long before swords were drawn. One of the most important aspects of Amina's strategy was her understanding of the terrain and the significance of geography in battle. She used the natural landscape to her advantage, often positioning her forces in ways that would maximize their effectiveness and limit the enemy's options. Her intimate knowledge of the land gave her the upper hand in many engagements, allowing her to secure victories even against overwhelming odds. Amina's reign also witnessed the strengthening of Zaria's economy. As her kingdom expanded, so did its wealth. The influx of traders from distant lands brought in new commodities, making Zaria one of the richest kingdoms in the region. Gold, ivory, and salt flowed through the markets, and merchants came from as far as the Mediterranean to engage in trade. Amina capitalized on this wealth by investing in infrastructure, making sure that the roads and trade routes were secure, and that the wealth generated from trade benefited all of her people. The prosperity of Zaria under Amina's rule wasn't limited to the elite. She made sure that her kingdom's wealth was spread across her people, ensuring that they too could share in the bounty of the empire. But it was not just the material wealth that flourished under Amina's leadership. It was the spirit of unity that she fostered. Zaria, under Amina's rule, became a place where different cultures and ethnicities coexisted in harmony. Amina's commitment to unity was clear. She knew that the strength of her empire lay in the loyalty and cooperation of its people. This wasn't always easy to achieve, given the many different groups and tribes within her domain. But Amina's leadership style, one of inclusion, respect, and foresight, allowed her to navigate these complexities with grace. Despite her many accomplishments, Queen Amina's reign was far from without challenges. As her kingdom expanded, her power was increasingly tested by internal and external forces. The neighboring kingdoms, once intimidated by her military prowess, began to conspire against her. And within her own court, whispers of rebellion and dissent began to grow. The pressure of maintaining a vast empire weighed heavily on Amina, but she met each challenge with the same resilience and decisiveness that had characterized her entire reign. Perhaps one of the most significant challenges of her reign was the struggle to ensure a smooth succession. Amina, in her later years, had to decide who would carry on her legacy. With no direct male heirs, the question of succession became a point of tension within her court. But Amina, ever the strategist, ensured that the future of Zaria was in good hands. She carefully groomed the next generation of leaders, ensuring they were well-versed in the art of governance, diplomacy, and war. This careful planning ensured that Zaria would remain strong long after her death, preserving her empire's legacy for generations to come. When Amina's time came, her death was a monumental event. Though the exact circumstances surrounding her death remain unclear, what is certain is that she passed away with the knowledge that her empire was secure. Some accounts suggest that she died in battle, succumbing to the wounds of war in her later years. Others believe she died in her palace, having ensured the continuity of her rule through her appointed successors. Whenever the cause of her death, it marked the end of an era, but not the end of her influence. The years following her death saw Zaria continue to flourish under the leadership of her successors. Though they faced challenges of their own, the foundation Amina had laid ensured that the empire remained a dominant force in West Africa for generations. Her military strategies, her political alliances, and her commitment to culture, trade, and education became the blueprint for future rulers. Even as time moved on, her legacy as a warrior queen who defied the odds continued to inspire people far beyond the borders of Zaria. Today, Queen Amina of Zaria is celebrated as one of Africa's greatest historical figures. Her name is synonymous with power, leadership, and resilience. But perhaps the greatest tribute to Amina's life is the enduring influence she has had on the generations of women and men who have followed her. Her legacy continues to serve as a reminder that true leadership comes from within. It's about strength of character, the ability to inspire others, and the vision to create a better future for those you lead. Amina was not just a ruler. She was a trailblazer, a beacon of empowerment, and a symbol of what is possible when one refuses to be constrained by the limitations of their time. As we reflect on her life, it's clear that Amina's story is more than just a historical account. It's a lesson in courage, determination, and the power of breaking down barriers. Queen Amina showed the world that greatness is not determined by gender, but by the ability to rise to challenges, to lead with purpose, and to leave an indelible mark on the world. Even after her passing, the story of Queen Amina resonated far beyond her kingdom's borders. Her name became synonymous with strength, resilience, and the sheer determination to change the fate of her people. Zaria, under her rule, had not only survived, but thrived, and her empire's influence extended far into the surrounding regions, creating ripples that would be felt for centuries. The power of her legacy can be seen in the subsequent generations of leaders who looked to her as a model of what true leadership could be. Amina was not only a figure of military conquest, she was an architect of a society that combined the warrior spirit with the spirit of cultural and intellectual growth. Her reign marked a renaissance in Zaria, as the queen herself understood that a kingdom could not solely be built on the foundation of military might. Her empire flourished because she made room for the arts and knowledge, establishing Zaria as a cultural hub. Her military victories, crucial as they were to the survival and expansion of her empire, were just one aspect of her multifaceted leadership. Amina's approach to governance was innovative, for it was based on inclusion rather than exclusion. Where many rulers might have focused purely on expanding their power by force, Amina's approach was grounded in maintaining unity. Even when she expanded her empire to include neighboring kingdoms, she didn't subjugate them. Instead, she established agreements that allowed for peaceful coexistence, incorporating elements of their cultures into her own. This openness laid the groundwork for a more integrated society, one where diversity was not feared, but celebrated. Moreover, Amina's foresight in governing her empire ensured that the structure she built would withstand the test of time. She knew that a kingdom cannot be sustained by war alone. It needed strong institutions that could govern effectively and fairly. To that end, she implemented reforms in Zaria's legal system, establishing codes that ensured justice was meted out fairly to all people. Her system of laws was respected across the region, and her judges, chosen for their integrity and knowledge, played a crucial role in maintaining stability. This commitment to fairness and justice further cemented Amina's status as a ruler who not only conquered, but also built. Her approach to trade and commerce was similarly forward-thinking. Amina was well aware that her empire's strength was directly linked to its wealth, and she recognized the importance of facilitating trade. Under her reign, Zaria became a key player in the trade networks that spanned West Africa. The kingdom's strategic position along important trade routes allowed for the free flow of goods like gold, salt, ivory, and textiles. But it was Amina's commitment to securing and protecting these trade routes that made her kingdom a thriving commercial hub. Traders from distant lands came to Zaria, eager to engage in commerce and expand their reach. The success of the trade in her empire brought prosperity not just to the ruling class, but to the common people as well, creating a strong and thriving economy. Yet, Amina's greatest legacy was perhaps her ability to empower the people around her. While many rulers sought to consolidate power within their inner circles, Amina's leadership was characterized by a commitment to mentorship and succession planning. She ensured that future leaders were equipped to continue her work. Unlike many monarchs, Amina did not simply pass on power to her heirs by birthright. She mentored the next generation of leaders, ensuring that they were well-versed in the complexities of governance, military strategy, and diplomacy. This focus on creating a sustainable system of leadership meant that her empire did not crumble after her death. In fact, it continued to thrive for years, thanks to the leaders who followed in her footsteps. But Amina's contributions weren't just political or military, they were also spiritual. Though the history of Queen Amina often focuses on her role as a warrior and queen, it's equally important to recognize her role as a cultural and spiritual figurehead. She embraced the traditional religious practices of her people, while also being open to the influence of outside faiths and ideologies. Amina's reign saw the flourishing of religious institutions and practices, making Zaria a place of not only military might and cultural innovation, but also spiritual reflection. She respected the spiritual needs of her people, encouraging religious tolerance and the development of religious institutions that provided solace and guidance to all of Zaria's citizens. Perhaps one of the most remarkable aspects of Amina's reign was her ability to balance power with empathy. As a woman in a deeply patriarchal society, she could have easily relied solely on her military strength to assert control. However, she chose to rule with a wisdom that transcended mere conquest. Amina was a leader who understood the human side of governance, the needs of her people, the challenges of her soldiers, and the demands of diplomacy. She made sure to listen to the voices of those who served her, ensuring that Zaria remained a place where all individuals, regardless of their rank or status, had a voice. It was this empathy for her people that made her not just a ruler, but a beloved queen. Her people saw her as one of their own, someone who fought for their survival and prosperity. While Queen Amina's empire continued to thrive after her passing, the political landscape of West Africa began to change. New forces arose, and with them, new challenges. The rise of the transatlantic slave trade, which began to gain momentum in the 17th century, cast a dark shadow over the African continent. Though Amina herself was no longer alive to see this period of exploitation and colonization, the strength and unity she had built within her kingdom served as a foundation for future resistance. The legacy of her leadership lived on in the hearts of those who would fight against colonization, slavery, and the oppressive forces that sought to tear Africa apart. As time went on, Amina's name continued to be honored, not just in Zaria, but throughout West Africa. Her story became a symbol of defiance and empowerment for future generations. Throughout history, the image of the African queen as a powerful and unyielding force would continue to inspire, and Amina stood at the forefront of this movement. Today, her name is synonymous with courage and leadership, a reminder that even in a world where women were often silenced, one woman could rise and command an entire empire. Amina's story is more than just the tale of a warrior queen. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to rise above societal expectations, and the power of leadership that can change the world. Her story is also a reminder that history is not written in one chapter, but continues to unfold. Amina's legacy has lived on through the people of Zaria, through the cultures she helped shape, and through the women who have followed in her footsteps. As we look back on her life, we see not just the accomplishments of a warrior queen, but the enduring impact she had on shaping the world around her. A world that even today continues to draw strength from her example. The fortifications she constructed in the cities she conquered were among the most significant military innovations of her time. These walls were not just defensive. They were a testament to Amina's ability to think ahead and create lasting infrastructure that could protect her kingdom long after her reign. The strategic positioning of these fortifications ensured that Zaria remained virtually impenetrable, while also serving as a visible representation of her power and her commitment to the safety of her people. Her enemies knew that attacking Zaria wasn't just about defeating its army. It was about breaching the very walls that symbolized her rule. Amina's military innovations didn't stop with fortifications. She recognized early on that to sustain her empire, she needed a well-organized and highly trained army. She revolutionized the training and organization of her troops, dividing them into specialized units that could respond to different types of threats. This flexibility allowed her forces to be nimble and adaptive, able to face any enemy head-on, whether in open battle or more covert engagements. The cavalry, in particular, played a critical role in her military successes. Her use of mounted soldiers allowed for rapid mobilization, making it possible to strike fast and decisively. Her forces were trained not only in conventional combat, but also in siege warfare, allowing her to conquer even the most fortified cities. Her understanding of warfare extended to the psychological aspects of battle as well. Amina knew the importance of instilling fear in her enemies. Her reputation, bolstered by her string of victories, was often enough to dissuade potential invaders. The mere thought of facing Amina's army was enough to make many kingdoms reconsider their plans. Her enemies were often paralyzed by the idea of confronting such a powerful, decisive, and unpredictable ruler. And it wasn't just fear she instilled. Amina also built a reputation for justice and fairness that drew loyalty from her own people. Soldiers under her command knew that they were fighting for a queen who would never abandon them, who would always lead from the front and never hesitate in battle. While Amina was feared by her enemies, she was also a woman of vision when it came to diplomacy. Her leadership was not limited to the battlefield. She was also a shrewd negotiator. Recognizing that alliances could be just as valuable as military victories, Amina forged strategic partnerships with neighboring kingdoms and distant empires. She understood that power wasn't just about military conquest. It was about the ability to secure peace when necessary and leverage alliances to strengthen her kingdom. By forging alliances with other powerful rulers, she ensured that her kingdom was not isolated, but part of a wider network of influence that increased her power on the world stage. Amina's diplomatic acumen extended to her ability to manage relations with foreign merchants and traders. Zaria, under her rule, became a thriving trade center. As a result of her diplomatic efforts, merchants from across West Africa, the Middle East, and beyond sought to establish trade relations with Zaria. Amina understood the importance of maintaining open trade routes and ensuring that her empire's resources were maximized. She took active steps to ensure the safety of these routes, protecting merchants from bandits and other threats, thus encouraging a steady flow of goods into her kingdom. Through her efforts, Zaria's markets were filled with a wide array of goods, from spices and textiles to metals and precious stones. The wealth generated from this trade was reinvested into the empire, fueling its growth and development. This prosperity was felt by the people of Zaria, who benefited from the resources Amina's empire provided. The kingdom was not just rich in gold and materials, it was rich in knowledge, art, and culture, thanks to Amina's support of intellectual growth and her commitment to fostering a thriving society. Amina's cultural impact cannot be understated. While her military achievements are what have garnered much of the attention throughout history, her contributions to the cultural development of Zaria were equally significant. As an enlightened ruler, she understood the importance of preserving and promoting the cultural heritage of her people. She didn't just conquer and build, she fostered a sense of pride and unity among her subjects, encouraging them to take part in the kingdom's cultural and intellectual life. The patronage of the arts, literature, and education flourished under Amina's rule. The queen encouraged the creation of music, dance, and poetry that celebrated her kingdom's history, values, and achievements. The griots, or oral historians, were not only tasked with preserving the history of Zaria, but were also responsible for celebrating the life of their queen. They wove songs and stories that spoke of Amina's wisdom, courage, and leadership, ensuring that her legacy would be passed down through generations. The oral tradition became a powerful tool for preserving her reign, and these stories were told around campfires, in royal courts, and in the halls of Zaria's palaces, allowing her name to echo through the ages. Amina also played a crucial role in preserving the religious and spiritual practices of her people. Her reign was a time of religious tolerance, where different faiths coexisted peacefully within her kingdom. Though the specifics of her own religious beliefs remain unclear, it is known that Amina respected the traditional beliefs of the Hausa people, while also welcoming the influence of Islam, which was spreading throughout the region at the time. This openness to different religions allowed for the blending of various cultural practices, enriching Zaria's spiritual landscape. Despite the many challenges she faced during her reign, Amina's leadership remained steadfast and focused on building a lasting legacy. Her ability to unite people from different backgrounds, her talent for military strategy, her diplomatic skills, and her cultural vision created a kingdom that not only survived her death, but continued to thrive for generations. Even as the colonial forces of Europe began to infiltrate Africa, the memory of Amina's reign lived on. Her story became a rallying cry for African nations struggling against colonial domination. Leaders like Nnamdi Azikiwe, Kwame Nkrumah, and Nelson Mandela, while not directly influenced by Amina, understood the importance of resistance and self-determination, qualities she embodied during her reign. In their efforts to gain independence from colonial powers, They drew upon the strength of African history and the example of leaders like Queen Amina. In the modern day, the story of Queen Amina is more relevant than ever. Her leadership style, which emphasized inclusivity, fairness, and strategic thinking, serves as a model for contemporary leaders, particularly women who are seeking to make their mark in fields traditionally dominated by men. Her legacy encourages people to look beyond the surface of gender, race, and tradition, and to focus on the qualities that make a great leader: vision, strength, compassion, and the ability to unite people for a common cause. Queen Amina, the warrior queen of Zaria, proved that one person, no matter their gender or background, could change the course of history. Her reign was not just about conquering lands, but about creating a lasting empire that would influence the world long after her death. Her story serves as a powerful reminder of the impact one determined individual can have, and it continues to inspire those who seek to change the world through leadership, courage, and vision. Queen Amina's reign was not just a time of military conquest and political stability. It was a period of profound transformation that reshaped the very fabric of Zaria's society. Her leadership was defined by an acute understanding of both the macro and micro aspects of governance, balancing military, economic, and cultural growth, all while managing internal tensions and external threats. This intricate balance is one of the most remarkable features of her reign. One of the defining characteristics of Amina's leadership was her ability to adapt to changing circumstances. In an era where political alliances shifted constantly, Amina demonstrated an uncanny ability to forge relationships with neighboring states and distant empires. She understood that war, though necessary for territorial expansion and defense, was not always the best solution for every conflict. By using diplomacy and negotiation as effectively as her military strategies, Amina was able to secure peace when necessary, making her kingdom stronger and more stable. She often employed strategic marriages and alliances to solidify her power. These alliances, while strengthening her empire, also served to create a network of allies who would stand by Zaria when needed. But Amina didn't rely solely on diplomatic tactics. She was keenly aware of the power of symbolism in leadership. Throughout her reign, she used symbols, both militaristic and cultural, to strengthen her influence. The fortifications she built around Zaria were more than just defensive structures. They were symbols of her power and her ability to protect her people. These walls, towering and indomitable, stood as constant reminders to her enemies that Amina was a ruler who would defend her kingdom at all costs. But more than that, they reminded her people that they were protected by a queen who valued their safety above all else. Amina's military strategies were also marked by a deep understanding of the psychology of war. She knew how to demoralize her enemies and boost the morale of her own troops. Her army, made up of highly trained soldiers, was known for its discipline and fierce loyalty. She cultivated a personal connection with her soldiers, ensuring that they felt respected and valued. This loyalty was a significant factor in the effectiveness of her military campaigns. Her warriors were not just fighting for territory, they were fighting for their queen, for their way of life, and for the future of Zaria. This sense of purpose made her army one of the most formidable in West Africa. Another key aspect of Amina's leadership was her understanding of the importance of intelligence. She established a network of spies and informants to keep her informed of potential threats, both internal and external. This allowed her to anticipate attacks and plot her military campaigns with precision. Her ability to gather and process information quickly made her a formidable strategist, as she was always one step ahead of her enemies. Whether it was through reconnaissance or by forging alliances with other kingdoms, Amina ensured that she was never caught off guard. Amina was also a forward-thinking ruler who understood the importance of infrastructure in maintaining a powerful empire. Her investment in road networks, market centers, and the construction of bridges helped integrate her vast kingdom and facilitated trade and communication. These infrastructure projects made Zaria not only more defensible, but also more prosperous. The roads and bridges she built became vital trade routes, connecting Zaria to other major centers of commerce across West Africa. This enhanced her kingdom's ability to trade with other empires, bringing in wealth and resources that were vital for sustaining the military and economic expansion of her empire. In addition to infrastructure, Amina also took measures to ensure that her kingdom's economy was not solely reliant on military conquest and external trade. She invested in agriculture and local industries, encouraging innovation in farming techniques and the development of craft industries. Under her rule, Zaria became a hub for artisans who produced textiles, pottery, and metalwork, which were highly valued both within her empire and by traders from other regions. This diversification of Zaria's economy helped cushion the kingdom against external economic shocks, ensuring that it could continue to thrive even in times of war or trade disruptions. Amina's reign also marked a period of social cohesion in Zaria. Although the kingdom was made up of various ethnic groups, Amina worked hard to ensure that her people were united under a common cause. Her leadership was marked by inclusivity. She did not discriminate against any group, instead encouraging them to contribute to the kingdom's prosperity. This sense of inclusivity was not only limited to the nobility or the military elite. Amina made sure that the common people, including farmers, traders, and artisans, felt valued. Under her rule, the people of Zaria were united not just by their allegiance to the throne, but by a shared sense of identity and purpose. But Amina was also a pragmatic ruler, one who knew that power could only be maintained as long as the ruling class was able to manage the kingdom's resources effectively. She created a system of governance that ensured resources were distributed equitably, both to the military and the civilian sectors. She established councils of advisors made up of experienced generals, scholars, and merchants who helped her make decisions that would keep the empire running smoothly. These advisors, chosen for their expertise, were critical in helping Amina navigate the complexities of ruling an expansive empire. Their guidance allowed her to make informed decisions that benefited her people and ensured the stability of her reign. Yet, for all her wisdom and foresight, Amina's reign was not free from conflict. As her empire grew, so did the envy and resentment from neighboring kingdoms. Rival rulers who had once sought her favor soon turned against her, eager to weaken her power and expand their own territories. The rise of new empires to the west and east, driven by their desire to control trade routes and gain access to the riches of West Africa, posed a constant threat. Amina's ability to manage these threats was a testament to her skill as a military leader. She never hesitated to defend her empire, even if it meant engaging in multiple campaigns at once. She remained unflinching in the face of adversity, knowing that the survival of Zaria depended on her strength as a ruler. But even as enemies gathered outside her borders, Amina never lost sight of her kingdom's internal needs. She knew that a strong empire needed a strong cultural and educational foundation. Thus, she supported the establishment of schools, libraries, and centers of learning where scholars could come together to exchange ideas. She understood that knowledge was power, and by fostering intellectual development, she ensured that her kingdom would not only be militarily strong, but also culturally advanced. Zaria became a place where scholars could study everything from philosophy to astronomy, from literature to mathematics. Her commitment to learning extended to the arts as well. Under her reign, Zaria saw a flourishing of visual arts, including sculpture, painting, and the creation of intricate textiles. These artistic endeavors were not just decorative. They served as a means of recording history and celebrating the values that Amina had instilled in her people. The visual arts became a tool for storytelling, preserving the memory of her rule and ensuring that future generations would remember the queen who had forged such a powerful and prosperous empire. Amina's reign truly encapsulated the idea of leadership in its purest form. A leader who understood the interconnectedness of military strength, economic prosperity, cultural advancement, and social unity. She ruled with a keen sense of vision, always looking toward the future, while never losing sight of the needs of her people in the present. As we look back on her reign, we see a figure who defied the norms of her time and shattered expectations. Amina was not only a queen in title, but a leader whose influence reached far beyond the borders of her empire. She understood the weight of leadership and carried it with grace, determination, and a steadfast belief in the potential of her people. Her story continues to resonate because it shows that true power is not about domination or force. It is about the ability to unite, to build, and to lead with wisdom and foresight. Queen Amina's reign, though rich in military and economic accomplishments, was also characterized by her profound understanding of leadership and the balance between strength and compassion. Her ability to maintain peace within her vast kingdom while expanding its borders spoke volumes about her strategic thinking. Amina knew that the key to a strong empire wasn't just in taking new territories, but in the seamless integration of those territories into the empire's cultural, economic, and social fabric. This ability to unite various peoples under a single rule without forcing assimilation, but rather fostering cooperation, was one of her greatest strengths. As Zaria expanded, it became a cosmopolitan empire. Amina's rule created an environment where diverse communities coexisted in relative peace, their unique traditions and customs respected. This inclusivity was not just about military victory, it was about allowing conquered peoples to maintain their cultural identity while benefiting from the prosperity that Zaria offered. This approach was revolutionary in an era where most conquering empires sought to impose their customs and laws on the subjugated. Amina, however, ensured that her subjects were both proud of their heritage and united by their loyalty to Zaria. Her kingdom's diverse composition was not just a source of strength, it was a foundation upon which the future of Zaria's society was built. The people she united became part of a vast network of trade, learning, and cultural exchange that spanned West Africa. Under Amina's rule, Zaria became an intellectual and cultural powerhouse in the region, drawing scholars, poets, and artisans from across Africa and beyond. These cultural exchanges fueled the kingdom's economic growth and established Zaria as a center of knowledge and creativity. Amina's court, a melting pot of cultures, became a beacon of intellectual and cultural development. It wasn't just a political center, it was also a hub of learning, where ideas from far-flung places were exchanged freely. Scholars from the distant Maghreb, traders from the Mediterranean, and intellectuals from the great empires of Mali and Songhai gathered in Zaria, exchanging knowledge on everything from agriculture to astronomy. Amina, recognizing the value of these interactions, promoted education and ensured that libraries and schools were established, allowing the next generation to continue this intellectual legacy. Her patronage of the arts was not limited to the preservation of Zaria's culture. Amina understood that art was a tool for diplomacy, history, and self-expression. The courtly arts flourished under her reign. Sculptures, murals, pottery, and textiles became not just aesthetic creations, but representations of her empire's might, unity, and values. Artists were encouraged to depict the great battles she led, the rich trade routes she secured, and the harmony she created between different peoples. These works were not only decorative, but carried deep political and social meaning, often serving as reminders to both her people and her enemies of the enduring power of her reign. Amina's leadership style was a unique blend of pragmatism and idealism. On one hand, she was a pragmatic ruler who understood that survival often depended on military strength and strategic alliances. On the other hand, she was an idealist, a ruler who believed in a greater vision for her kingdom, one where not only military might, but also cultural and intellectual flourishing could create an enduring empire. She worked tirelessly to ensure that Zaria was a kingdom where the pursuit of knowledge, economic prosperity, and military power were not mutually exclusive, but rather complementary forces that together built a stronger, more unified empire. Her reign also marked an important moment in the history of African women in power. Amina was, in many ways, ahead of her time. Though she operated in a deeply patriarchal society, she defied the conventions that often relegated women to the background of history. In her, Africa saw the embodiment of what was possible when women were allowed to lead, not just as symbolic figures, but as real, effective rulers. Her rule was a direct challenge to the stereotypes that portrayed African women as subservient or incapable of leadership. She ruled a vast and prosperous empire, expanded its borders, led military campaigns, and ensured its cultural and intellectual development, all while challenging the gender norms of her time. Amina's impact on future generations of African women cannot be understated. Her life became a beacon of possibility for women across the continent, showing them that leadership, military command, and governance were not the exclusive domain of men. The power and respect she commanded became a symbol of female empowerment, inspiring countless African women to enter political, military, and cultural leadership roles. Even today, Amina's story is used to inspire young girls across Africa, demonstrating that they too can aspire to greatness, no matter the limitations society may place on them. While Amina's military prowess and strategic vision are often the focus of her legacy, it is essential to understand how these military victories were interconnected with her broader goals of peace, stability, and unity. Her campaigns were never just about conquest for the sake of conquest. Each battle, each campaign, was part of her grander vision for a unified and prosperous empire. She understood that a strong military was necessary to secure peace, protect her people, and expand her empire. But she also understood that lasting peace could not be achieved without thoughtful governance, trade, and cultural exchange. As we examine Amina's legacy, it becomes clear that her rule was not defined by her battles alone, but by the holistic way in which she approached governance. She was a visionary who saw the big picture, who knew that military might and cultural development had to work hand in hand. Her success was built not only on the strength of her sword, but on the strength of her ideas. Ideas that promoted unity, prosperity, and intellectual growth. Her ability to balance these elements is what set her apart as one of the greatest rulers in African history. Even as her empire expanded and solidified, Amina never lost sight of the needs of her people. The welfare of her subjects was a constant focus. She understood that a kingdom's true strength came from the unity and well-being of its people. Amina instituted policies that benefited not just the elite, but also the commoners. She established systems for food distribution, ensured that markets flourished, and made sure that her people had access to the resources they needed to thrive. This focus on her people's welfare created a kingdom where citizens felt they had a stake in the success of their empire and were willing to fight, work, and contribute to its prosperity. Her reign marked an era of lasting peace and prosperity for Zaria. The wealth generated through trade, the protection of resources, and the cultural and intellectual exchange that flourished under her rule ensured that her kingdom remained one of the most powerful and respected in West Africa. Even as other empires rose and fell, Zaria remained a testament to Amina's vision and leadership. She didn't just build an empire. She built a society that was self-sustaining, resilient, and culturally rich. Her reign set the standard for future rulers, not just in West Africa, but across the continent. As time passed, Amina's influence only grew. Long after her death, she continued to inspire the leaders of West Africa, and her legacy became a symbol of what was possible when a ruler was both strong and compassionate, strategic and visionary. Today, Amina is remembered as one of the greatest rulers in African history, a leader whose story transcends the borders of Zaria and speaks to the universal themes of leadership, strength, and resilience. Queen Amina's name continues to be revered in Zaria, where she is not only a historical figure, but a cultural icon. Her story is celebrated in festivals, stories, and the arts, keeping her memory alive for future generations. In many ways, Amina's reign is a model for contemporary leadership, one that emphasizes the importance of both strength and compassion, vision and pragmatism. Her ability to unite disparate people, foster economic growth, and defend her empire against external threats remains an enduring example of the power of effective leadership.